Now we'll check out Cheiron. Hi, nice to meet you.
Thank you. My name is Mila.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
That's great. We're doing good too. What kind of company is Cheiron?
We are building an AI intelligence platform which is focusing on the bio and the pharma industry specialized, and then we are building in the bigger term, it's gonna be building as a operation system in the future.
All right. Can you maybe show us?
Yeah, of course. I can give you a simple demo queries in here. So I'm sure you've been already experienced about using the Gemini, ChatGPT,
yeah.
right? Yeah. Pretty much as you can see, this is having a similar the UX UI system. So basically the users when they sign in they're just simply typing whatever they're having questions in their mind. So let me just type in examples in here. You can just choose whatever questions that you're in mind, and then here this is what we are specialized actually, because we are integrated specifically focused on the biopharma industry such as FDA, PubMed, ICH, whatever the users usually familiar with. And then based on these data sets, actually Cheiron can give you specialized answers which can be differentiated different generalized LMM. So yeah.
So what makes it different from, let's say, Gemini or ChatGPT?
Of course, let me show you. As you can see, we have reference panels in there. You can see every answers as one by one those sentences having the references, which means every quote is having citations. So when the users they usually having a trouble with hallucinations
Yeah.
That's the biggest
All the
problem.
time.
Right, yeah. So we're solving those problems actually. You can just write after what kind of evidence came from these reference panels. Yeah.
Oh, that's smart. Okay.
Yeah. Would you like to try out?
I would love to try. Oh yeah, now I can see it coming in.
Right, yeah. So you can see that in first paragraph. So if you click it, it's coming from this first reference. So it's not just showing what kind of papers came it from. Actually, it shows what kind of sentences it came from. So let me show you the second one. As you see these yellow highlights, you can see there's page number 5, and then when you see it actually in the viewer, see you got the information from the background, which can be very powerful. If you're a user, you don't need to read all the 100 papers. You can just find out.
Okay, so you can really be sure that the information is in there, in fact. And if you want to read up on it, you can.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, of course. So you can see in here you get the the full articles from where it came from, FDA Gov, and then if you wanna going in deeper actually here you can also doing a chat with these about these documents. So here you can see the summarize those kind of things for free. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
By the way, actually, we have different types of options in here. This version I show you as B2C everyone can use, and then we provide 20% and 20 times of free queries for every users. So you can just sign in and then you can try out for free.
Ooh.
But then we do have the business plans so for the small enterprise for the startups you can go with team plan. And then if you go having the bigger plan over 30 members, actually you can choose business plan. In that case, actually they do have specialized function, which is AI agent. So each agent actually they are placed with different types of roles. So if you're R&D, if you're BD, commercials, we provide specialized functions for each individuals.
Oh, wow. Okay, so then you get extra features.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I can just show you simply how those features works as well.
I bet that would make your job so much easier.
Look, yeah. Here, there's tons of options of an AI agents, QA expert, drug overviews, the people probably they're familiar with the TPP, if you're working in this industry, and then you see here use agents we made certain features of templates, so you don't need to actually prompting for each individual agent. It's already prompting. And then here, like, as examples, like, it can be filling, like, based on your questions, like, so you can simply get the, like, really, like, read deeper about, like, research answers.
That's amazing. Okay, I'm sure there are a lot of people here who are like, okay, this sounds amazing.
Is it?
I would love to get that. Where is it available right now? Is it available in pretty much any country?
It's a global service. Actually, we do like having office. Actually, we are based in Siliconvalley, like so our company headquarters is in SF, and then we are having like a Korean branch, and then we do have another branch in India, and then our users actually is global based, and then we do have over 10,000 actually users in global. And then we do have actually like in Korea, like we have over 10 plus like enterprise like B2B services already like provided. So it's trustworthy and incredibly like service and the product.
That's amazing. Then let me ask one last question. What is coming up next? What can people look forward to?
Oh, we recently launched like internal database like service like which is called like company knowledge. And then next month actually we are like aim to like add on another function which calls Cheiron review. So as you know like biopharma industry there's like tons of papers like people are actually writing and they need to review. And then we're gonna add on like AIs can review like those papers and then provide like additional comments like suggestions like so people can have like better quality of like proof work.
Okay, well that sounds amazing. If you're interested, check them out. Thank you so much for the interview.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.